Happy Monday! I'm out here gathering items for today's word of the day for Get Messy May. The word is gathering. And I am looking for little moments. Like this is a branch that has already come off that's on the floor. I try not to pick flowers off the plants while they're still happily living their lives. We might do jelly prints. Ooh, there's a good leaf. Okay, so we have gathered some goodies. In this case, some leaves. Look what I found. Look what I found. Skeleton leaves. Oh, my favorite. Some of them not so great, but many of them are very cool. And I'm thinking I could possibly incorporate those in some capacity. My gathering has become more foraging, to be honest. But I think we're going to do some jelly prints. I'm going to go through my stuff, gather some supplies, and we'll make a spread based off that. Okay, so we've gathered a bunch of art supplies, including the jelly plates. I've talked about these kind of a few times over the month so far. Jelly printing is a whole other fun, messy, creative thing to do. Let me show you it. Now mine is filthy because of many uses. But this is a jelly plate for those that are new to it. It's rubbery feeling. And it's great for making prints and transfers and things. Now, this is my actual book, my Get Messy book. And gathering is on this side and shadow is on this side. Now, we could do both, in theory, across in one foul swoop. We'll see how that goes. I'm gonna get some paints. I did just get a new set, a small set actually, of, it's called Dream and Create. Look at that, from Amsterdam acrylics. And this was the portrait set of 6, and I just thought the colors were really nice, neutral, almost vintage vibes. So for this, actually there's no black in here. There is burnt umber, raw umber, yellow ochre, violet, I don't know that one, Naples yellow, red, and titanium white. So because we're just doing a print, I'm going to start by putting my background color. So let's go with a dark color. In this case, we're going to go with the burnt umber. And you only need a little bit. You don't need a huge amount when doing a jelly print. And I have a brayer ready to go. I'm doing a very light layer. And this is what I like to call warming up the plate, because this probably won't yield much of a result. I just want to make a very light impression. Pop that on top. And I have a ton of scraps of paper, like on the backs of things, that, like this was an old spring celebration, and I find those to be really great for warming up the plate. So when I say warming up the plate, I mean kind of pressing down and removing the first layers of ink, because sometimes it doesn't necessarily take as well as I want. And I just feel like sometimes just starting with a piece also shows me what color it is. So there we go, and it picked up that glitter that was stuck. So that's an imprint. And now when I pull this off, see that? We have this lovely imprint with the actual details of the leaf. It's hard for you to see there because there's actually some pencil markings stuck on there. Now I could lay this back over. This actually has almost like a metallic shimmer to it. It's really interesting. I think we need a little more paint on the page. And it's still got a little bit of an impression left underneath, which may or may not come up again. Let's do this again. Let's lay this on here. Make an imprint. Actually, I'm going to use this one as well, because this had a really interesting design on it. And then I'm going to go on like this, just to clean the plate actually. And nothing is ever wasted, by the way, because I will still use these pieces of paper in something else potentially. But I just want to lift off that paint that's on the jelly plate so that I leave my impression. Actually, that's interesting because it lifted up. That one there on the hop on over. Take this off. Got this fabulous impression there. I like the outline as well, actually. So this is the Naples yellow red. Let me just feel, like I always check. You see how it's lifting up? That's not ready yet. Gotta wait because these guys are dry, but the rest of it isn't. So we gotta wait a little longer. Now you can do this as well, where you roll the paint on the side before you put it on. I actually quite like that look as well. So I'm gonna let, a lot of people actually use the jelly plate for this on the side. I always just use a piece of paper because I can use this paper again. That's my thinking. And then we're gonna roll over in a fairly equal fashion. That's the hope. That we get kind of an equal layer of paint on there. And I'm actually going to grab like so and grab on this side as well. Let's try and get all of this off the page, and then you don't have to use your brayer on the back. I just know that I'm using these pieces to create something that won't see both sides. So this will end up not being seen at all. Actually, really liking this color combo. It's very vintage. And that's really fun. Look at that. That's how this one came out, which I quite like as a basis for gathering. But we still have all this left on the page, so what I'm going to do is one more colour combo on here. Let's go with this violet colour, because why not? I do love violet, and if it mixes together with some of this yellowy red, it could be quite interesting. And just that layer will hopefully pick up the pieces underneath that you see up here, these darker moments that, See, I know that lots of people do this in a very neat fashion. I do not. I like to just get it on the page and create. Usually create a mess, but that's okay. I'm just putting a little bit of pressure on there to lift off the acrylic that is stuck to the jelly plate, sorry. And then hopefully this will clean the plate and remove all the layers that we have on there. So we missed a bit there. It's okay, we'll have to come back around a second round. But then you have these fabulous sheets of basically unique prints that I've used throughout the book, actually, as you've seen. Look, well, there's been pages that I've used like this. This was one of these. This is bits of pull, and that's what I used for Uncover yesterday with the, and it's just leftover print, but it ends up being quite a fun textures that you can create doing that. So nothing is wasted. This will be used again. So this is raw umber, dark. And I did gather, because gather is the word of the day, some other items besides the plants. Like if you don't put enough down, you won't get much of a result. I'm going to do another version of this. I love this like veininess that you get on the leaves. I do like that. So let's put him down again. And you know what? This one is kind of broken. So let's add him on. I think that would be fun. And let's go with this piece because why not? I'm just using it to pick up the paint around it. See if it works. Actually, that could potentially work quite well for shadow.
funnily enough. Actually, that's fantastic. I love that with the skeleton leaf like that. This guy got a little smushed. I'm not mad at it though. Let's try this way around as well. What does that look like? I'm showing you in real time today because a lot of people like to see the real-time jelly printing, as do I. So I'm letting it dry a little bit and then we're going to pick another colour. Maybe we should try all the colours. You know what? Let's do it. Let's go with the yellow ochre, which I'm not a big fan of yellow ochre normally because it's kind of like mustard yellow a little bit. It really is like a mustard yellow, isn't it? Oh, not sure if I like that. But we're going for it. Not sure how well that's going to come up with the white. We might need a dark colour in there too. You have to move kind of fast when you have such a thin layer. Or it will pick up the paint you just put down, which we don't want. We want to try and cover the whole thing with a thin equal layer. And then I don't mind if this gets a little creased because I like that look. Again, it kind of gives a vintagey vibes. Now, unfortunately, I have to speed this up and do a voiceover because this actually went horribly wrong. I left the paper down for too long and therefore it got stuck, ended up ripping some of the calligraphy sheet apart. However, I do kind of love the end result. I can cut moments from it and make it work in another way. I ended up putting a layer of white to lift up the remaining items on this sheet. And again, if you put the right consistency of paint and you layer it thin enough, you can usually lift up pretty much anything. It's just warming up the plate is important, doing lots of pulls before you actually kind of go with your final piece if you want a perfect pull. However, like I said, all these little pieces I can find a way to use in another project. So after a few pulls, I decided I quite liked the look with the white as the leaf veins, so I decided to go in with all of the leaves that I foraged earlier and lift up the back so that I'm left with the outlines and the like the details of the leaves in white. I then played with the idea of painting the leaves and popping them on with different colors. I just honestly played a lot today. I do love jelly printing because of its play aspect. I've never done a dark background over the top, so I thought today I would give it a go. I did the dark burnt umber mixed with some black, and then I put that light shade on the side and thought, you know what, let's do this as the both sides for today and tomorrow. So today was gathering tomorrow's shadow. So because I'm using this dark paint, it just felt appropriate to do the shadow side as well. So I went straight in with the book and decided to print directly onto it. Wasn't sure how well it would work, but I knew it would be a good starting point for the spread. I will say there was a lot left over on here, so I'm going to put as much of this as I can over the top in varying colours. Mustard yellow, go back on there. You can also use clear Mod Podge, I'm told. I just don't think it dries quick enough for it to really work in quite the same way. But this is just going to be a pull. We're just trying to get the bits of acrylic stuck on here off the page. This is the calligraphy paper. It often works really well actually for pulling up a final piece. You can also use baking paper, baking sheets even. That's a good option a lot of the times. We're going to turn this whole thing upside down so you can see it, because sometimes that can yield really interesting results. Like if I pull this up right now and I do it quick enough, it might work. That's very interesting. But now we have a clean plate. Look at that, back to normal, although I will wash it. But that's interesting, actually. We could include that onto the page for sure. I did just drop this in the black paint, and because tomorrow's shadow, I feel compelled to put this next to it like it is a shadow. Don't know if that's going to work, but we're about to find out. Let's press them down. Not really. But we tried. Part of the fun is trying. And now we're getting into the real nitty-gritty of the day, getting all of these pages I've now created and cutting and pasting them and playing with them on the page directly into the journal. And this is my favorite part of junk journaling, art journaling, is just moving things around, seeing how they work well together. Kind of a collage effect in this particular way of doing it. And there were moments that happened on a lot of the pieces today that wouldn't necessarily look good as one piece, but when you rip them up and place them in new ways, in this case I took a punch cutter, like a square punch as well, then elements of the colours that had been used, I decided to finger paint over the top. I even stuck an official leaf on there, a real leaf part of it. Again, not sure how that feeds into gathering, but that's where we went. And because I had ended up going over into this other side for tomorrow, decided to get the shadow going as well at the same time. So again, moving things around. I got black paint on the shadow side, but I still wanted to incorporate the leaf kind of elements. So I did a couple of little leaf sketch and followed the lines of some of the leaves across, and then did the same with black on the other side. As with all my mixed media pieces, it all just kind of comes together as I'm doing it. And if I don't like an element, I can always go over it again. I have put in some of that paper that we were working on, and I found a fabulous poem called Gathering Leaves, and I think I'm going to write it out on here and see if it will work on the page. All right, well, I've stuck the poem. It's actually longer than this, but I just did the first 2 paragraphs because I liked it. It says, Gathering Leaves by Robert Frost. Spades take up leaves no better than spoons, and bags full of leaves are light as balloons. I make a great noise of rustling all day, like rabbit and deer running away. And I thought it's funny that I did this on the Easter pamphlets that we had, which have a bunny on it. You can't even see that anymore, but I know it's there, so that's fun. And then I am cutting this down. It doesn't have to be perfect. I stuck on the piece that I pulled earlier because I wanted to stick this on somewhere, but I realized I didn't want to cover anything up. So I'm cutting him down to size a little bit, and then we're going to take tape and make a little hinge here to add in gold leaf and florals going on. That could be fun. The final stage of these 2 pages came when I thought I wanted to laminate the skeleton leaves I'd found. And so I don't have a laminator currently, so I decided to tape laminate it. So I took tape and like packing tape, and I taped around both of the leaves and then put black around it to really highlight the shadow element, and then stapled them in. All right, we have come to the end, and I've added some writing on here that was missed off camera. So here is the gathering side. We gathered all the leaves, gathered some art supplies up, made a beautiful mess. Gathering Leaves, poem by Robert Frost that I've attached in there. And on this side became the shadow side. I have these tape laminated, because I don't have a laminator at the moment. Fabulous skeleton leaves I found, and then I put them over the top of the dark, and then I've written 2 quotes. One says, "Don't be afraid of the shadow, it only means there is light nearby." And this one, which I love, which I'm thinking I might write over in white so the black becomes the shadow, and it says, "Capture a shadow, dance with the wind, stand in a rainbow, begin at the end." And that's by Mary Ann Radmacher. I think that's how you say it. I'm going to write over that in white, I think, see how that looks, and then we are donezo.